What's going on, everyone? Happy Monday. Welcome back to kdjTV. Thank you, of course, for being here. And today it's time to answer your questions in another edition of 10-Minute Mailbag. Not a ton of questions from last week's video, but that's okay. I think it was more of a prompt that I gave you in the comment section, and you guys certainly hit the nail on the head there, talking a lot back and forth about casual versus hardcore. Today I have two really good questions and one comment that really, I don't know, was intended to become part of this, but we're gonna make it that because it's my video and I do what I want. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the channel. Thank you for being here. My name is Kenny, aka kdjTV. Upload Monday through Friday on YouTube, also stream a little bit on Twitch, but every Monday I answer your questions in the YouTube comment section about MLB The Show. Anything you want, any opinions you want me to share, I will share. As always, we're going to put 10 minutes on the clock and go through the damn thing here. If you like this content, make sure you like, comment down below your questions, very important, and subscribe. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers. Alrighty then, on to your questions. As always, 10 minutes on the clock begins when I push the button, and then we'll talk. All right, ready? So 3, 2, 1, begin. Today we're going to start with a comment from Jose Antonio Dominguez 8170. Jose Antonio, thank you for being here. Not going to lie, I love the content structure of MLB 18. That was Immortals, by the way, for those who don't remember. Having most of the game available on day one was great. However, the grind was the worst. First things first, I want to talk quickly about Immortals. Immortals were god-awful grinds from MLB The Show 18 that were, as Jose said, available day one. Those cards were Bob Gibson, Goose Gossage, Kenny Griffey Jr., Chipper Jones, Stan Musial, Mike Piazza, Albert Pujols, Cal Ripken Jr., Nolan Ryan, Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth, Tom Seaver, Billy Wagner, and Vladimir Guerrero, who was a live series collection reward. Excuse me. Excuse me again. I looked up Immortals on Google just to see any information I could find, and one of the first things I saw was on Reddit. The headline is, Immortals have ruined Diamond Dynasty. So yes, Immortals were quite the grind. The cards were worth it. Right now, we don't have any grind like that. Instead, SDS releases content in batches. Team Affinity, of course, being the closest thing we have right now to Immortals. I will just bump that audio down there. And I say that in terms of the grind, not in terms of the quality of card, but in terms of the grind. It takes quite a long time to get 150,000 Team Affinity points. Every single team. We're on Season 3. We've had to do that 3 times 6 divisions. I believe that math checks out to 18 times. It's a lot. And we ultimately are not getting cards worth the grind via Team Affinity. We get them through collections and this and that and the other thing, but that's a different story. I want to talk about this because I don't necessarily hate the idea of a brunt of the content being available on day one. It would truly give people something to grind for and strive towards. It would have to take some time, though. And that's the only worry. Because if you drop, whatever that was, 12 to 15 Immortals day one, and that is meant to be the bulk of the content, if people get there and get them all done in a month to 6 weeks, and you know people will do it, or maybe even faster, you've fucked yourself for the rest of the season. You're in really bad shape. Not the rest of the season, the rest of the cycle. So, I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think going back to having most of the content available day one is a good idea, a bad idea, indifferent idea? How do you feel about it? Because right now, I think we can all agree we both enjoy live content, but we also realize that a lot of it is worthless and that it takes up a lot of our free time. MLB The Show, maybe this is like many sports games nowadays, but I really only play MLB. To keep up with everything, you have to devote time to it. That's where that conversation last week of casual versus hardcore came into play. How much time are you willing to devote to a game that ultimately means nothing other than, hopefully, enjoyment? If you drop all the content day one, there is less of a reason, or I guess, less pressure to sink your entire life into the game. Just knowing you'll get there when you'll get there, you're not necessarily missing anything new. It's just kind of you do it at your leisure. I'm very curious what people think about that. I am not against going back, like I said, to having most of the content available early on. I actually kind of think it would be sort of fun. I do think, however, and I'm not saying catering to content creators. I want to make that abundantly clear. But as someone who creates content, that would make what I do very difficult because there'd be less to talk about, less to riff on, less to try out every week. But I think from just viewing this as a person Viewing this from the standpoint of a person who just turns the game on to hang out and play for a little while, that might be a good idea. I wonder if there's maybe some happy medium they could figure out where there are some things you can grind that are available all season long or all year long, and they're big and they're juicy and they're spicy, but they also mix in some of that live content. So I'm curious. Really, let's have a conversation again. Answer it down below, but also ask your questions to me so we can keep doing this series. Thank you, Jose, for your question or your comment. Alpha Predator, always ask good questions. Thanks again for answering my question, of course. If you could change how an attribute works, which one would you change? I love how they changed clutch to actually make it important, since there are so many useless attributes in the game right now. So let's think about this. I didn't really go deep into this too much. Ultimately, I look at this card right now, and I don't think Discipline does really much of anything, or at least what it should. I think Discipline should have more of an impact on check swings, and it should be noticeable. Right now, I'm not sure it does that. From a pitching standpoint, this is really tough. This is really, really tough. I think stamina is ultimately broken. And I've said this forever. So, this isn't necessarily changing an attribute, but I think it's fixing how it works. I'm staring at Chase Pack, Cy Young, Jacob deGrom. Yes, I bought him for 620,000 stubs. Yes, it was a lot. He has 121 stamina. In my head, the way I think, you should be able to throw 121 pitches to get to 0 on his energy bar. For some reason, stamina doesn't work that way. Stamina depletes in a very strange, algorithmic way that I'm not sure anyone actually knows. 100 stamina should mean 100 pitches. Doesn't mean you can't keep going. You can, of course, throw as many pitches as you want. You're just gonna, be pitching very dangerously without energy. Stamina for years has been the subject of criticism with SDS. Whether it's the two-way glitch, whether it's BR 3-inning stamina being weird, whether it's starting pitching stamina being weird, whether it's relievers coming into the bullpen and being gassed after 7 pitches. I'm not quite sure why it's so damn hard to program everything. Yes, in real life, you could argue throwing a 104-mile-an-hour fastball takes more of your energy away than throwing a changeup. Sure. This isn't real life. This is a video game. I think making stamina work in a logical way where it just counts down from 1 every pitch you throw makes a hell of a lot more sense. If that's the way it's intended to work and it doesn't work that way, fix it. If that's not how it's intended to work, make it be that way. Alpha, thank you again, buddy. I appreciate you. Our last question for today, I clicked on the wrong one. I apologize. Our last question for today comes from Scotty. When we get capped event overall teams, meaning event you can only use a team that adds up to a 93 overall, for example, would you like to see a higher minimum for eligible players? I can't speak. Personally, I'd rather see people build an actual team and making sacrifices rather than stripping the bottom of the rotation, half the bullpen, and the bench to 60 overalls. I think that is an interesting thing to think about. If you have a team that has to be a max 93 overall, like Scott said, the number one thing to do is put your 5th starter in the rotation at the lowest overall you can have. So if it's 60, you put a 60. I would say put 3 of your 4 bench players to 60. Make sure someone has speed. Put 2 or 3 relievers to 60. And now you could put a God Squad everywhere else. It ends up making events just 3-inning God Squad pissing matches. Which, is, for some people, that's fun. Some people want to use their God Squad cards everywhere. For other people, Scott presumably being one of them, it takes away some of the fun. Like, maybe I do want to have the opportunity to put a 76 overall live series card in left field. I guess theoretically I still could do that. I put the onus on me to actually produce that type of team. But yes, I think SDS largely has gotten pretty lazy with events. Outside of adding the 12 win reward, which I think has been excellent, events just feel like rinse repeat. Sometimes they lock it at a stadium. Sometimes they make it so you can only use, like, a handful of different card types. But I ultimately feel like every single event is not identical, but it's so similar to the last one, or they play the same, or they're just bloodbaths, or, other than Moonshot and the last horse shit event at Polo Grounds, every event to me feels pretty much the same. They try to, do weird things like Stadium Lock at Los Angeles, which they just did for this event, but I feel like they turn the sliders up, because offense is through the roof in this event. A way to fix that, or a way to make things more interesting, yes, would be to incorporate players that are not just at the lowest cap, lowest threshold, whatever you want to call it. If you make me use players that are between 65, not 65, it's too low. Let's say you make the low 75. I think 75 silver player is a very fair low point. Because there are some silvers that actually can do some things, like some relievers, some starters, some bench pieces, some speedy boys. You can start platooning and doing stuff. I think if you make it so 75 is always the minimum, unless it's Moonshot, because different things happen. If you make it so 75 is always the minimum, now we're talking about team building. You got to make sacrifices. Instead of using the 99, you got to use the 95 and mix your silvers in. I think that would be a cool way to go. Ultimately, I think events just needs a little bit of juice. The mode itself has a place. It's just been a little stale. Boys and girls, we are finished with another 10-minute mailbag. I appreciate the comments and questions as always. Like I said, last video was more about the comments, more about the discourse, and I had fun reading those conversations. But I do want to just make sure everyone remembers this series can't exist without your questions. Ask your questions. Whatever you want. We just got a ton of content that just came out. If you guys have questions about it, let me know. If you guys think there's things that need to be changed, or if you want my opinion on game modes and stuff, let me know. This series can't happen without you, and I appreciate all of you for always making the comments and the questions. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. YouTube, I am exhausted from having to record a How to Pitch with video for this week that required me to play a lot of ranked seasons. You will see that video on Thursday, of course. But we are finished with 10-minute mailbag. Thank you for making it to the end. Ask your questions. Love you, love me, love each other, love yourselves. See you next time.